signed. Committee Room 21, 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 signed. Committee Room 21. 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 Sound. 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 Committee Room 21. Sound.
Thank you. I'd remind members to turn off your mobile phones and tune it on silent. We're now opening public session. We do have quorum and we do have members online, so I'm going to call the meeting to order, guys. I would advise those in the public gallery that they're welcome to use mobile devices as long as they are on airplane mode and that all devices are muted, and it's not permitted to take photographs or record any of the meeting. I'm just going to ask for declarations of interest. Members, are there any new interests to declare, not declared at our first meeting, that are relevant to any matters under discussion this week? Okay. Okay, are you aware of any apologies? We do have Nicola and Anya joining us via Zoom.
Yes, Patsy McGlone has sent through an apology.
Okay.
He's unwell.
Oh dear. Okay, we'll pass on our best wishes to Patsy and hope that he's better for Christmas. Okay. Agenda item 2 would be Chairperson's business. Members, I would advise you that I have received correspondence dated the 5th of December in the pack at pages 5 to 18 from the Peace Guardians and Peace Summit Partnership regarding a call to action for peace. I recently spoke at an event in my individual MLA capacity held by the Peace Summit Partners, and they are now requesting a meeting with the committee to discuss their work and campaign regarding an inclusive peace plan. Central to their work is integrating peace across all government policies and decision making, and they believe that this committee has a role to play in helping them achieve this. Members, in the correspondence there is a paper outlining the issues and challenges, call to action and the role of the Peace Summit Partnership. Members, are you content that we add this to our forward work plan to consider in the new year, particularly in connection with rural support and border areas? Content? Thank you, members. Item number 2. Members, I refer you to pages 19 to 21 of the pack. The Minister's statement issued on the 9th of December regarding the net Northern Ireland emissions account for the year 2030. In accordance with Section 6(2)(b) of the Climate Change Act Northern Ireland 2022, the Minister is required to lay a statement before the Assembly, and the statement is to advise members of his decision to maintain the requirement placed on all departments to ensure that the net Northern Ireland emissions account for the year 2030 is at least 48% lower than the baseline. Members, have you any comments, or are you content to note this? Content to note? Thank you, members. Agenda item 3. It's the minutes of the meeting on the 5th of December. I refer you to pages 22 to 37 of the pack for the draft minutes dated the 5th of December. Have members any comments? Are you content with the minutes as drafted? And if so, I will ensure that they are signed and published on the website. Content? Okay, there is a minor factual correction that has been made to the minutes of the 7th of November, agenda item 6, which was the SI, the Greenhouse Gas Emissions Trading Scheme Amendment number 2 Order 2024. It now refers correctly to the oral briefing being from the Department's Climate Change, Science and Innovation Group rather than from NIEA. Are you content to note, members? Okay, thank you. Okay, agenda item 4, which is matters arising. Members, I refer you to the response from the Department dated the 4th of December at pages 39 to 47 of the pack in reply to our letter of the 15th of November regarding vacancies within DAERA, the impact on the work of the departments and also on the difficulties associated with filling registered vacancies. Members, the response states that the recruitment is centralised within the Department of Finance and DAERA officials do work with the NICS HR team. However, the department is concerned that its vacancy rate has increased in recent months to over 700 registered vacancies, which is quite worrying, I think. This figure includes Windsor framework-related vacancies, which cut across the ministerial responsibilities of both Minister Muir and the DEFRA Secretary of State, reflecting the Windsor Framework Implementation Regulations 2024. Members, just over 50% of DAERA's registered vacancies are at general service grades, and even with a rolling programme of NICS-wide general service recruitment campaigns, the supply of candidates has not been sufficient to meet demand in DAERA and indeed in other departments. The NICS is competing with private and public sector organisations to recruit and retain staff at a time when the unemployment rate is at a very low level. The response highlights the skill shortages in several disciplines, including veterinary and forestry and Inspector Group 1 grades. Members, in regard to our concerns on the impact of vacancies to developing and implementing the new rural policy and TRIPSI work, the Minister confirms that he remains focused on our work to develop a new rural policy and looks forward to further engagement with the committee as it moves forward. Members, are you content to note, or have you any further questions or concerns that you would wish to register at this point? Okay, I'll take that as your content. Thank you, members. Members, if you refer you to the response from the department dated the 5th of December at pages 48 to 53 of the pack in reply to our letter on the 25th of November regarding an update on progress of the recommendations of Breaking the Grass Ceiling report published in 2022 by the previous committee. The Minister recently reviewed the actions being progressed by the departments, which are set out in the annex of his response. Members, the Minister has confirmed that it is planned that this will be discussed at the future Agriculture Policy Stakeholders Group meeting. And members, have any comments, or are you content from the annex that the actions are indeed being progressed?
I'm glad to note that this will be discussed at in that particular group. Obviously, and I'd like if this could be brought back to committee. I note that I note DAERA's position on some of these matters. Some of them I think they should be under consideration. For example, I just note in the reply there, in the case of Scotland, there's a training subsidy for women farmers to participate in course that's not being considered by DAERA, and also one of the recommendations was the feasibility of supporting women farmers during and after pregnancy, and that's something that's not being considered by the department. So I do think that that I'm glad that it's been discussed further, but it's something that I don't think that. This can't be left on the shelf, this report, because it's an important piece of work. And it is very telling that 95% of registered farm businesses are male, and 96% of the business development groups are male. So it is something that needs to be tackled. So if members were agreeable, could we keep coming back to this? Yep. Right.
John, do you anything to add, or are you okay? You happy enough?
No, I'm happy with that recommendation to look at this at a later stage also to see how the progress goes.
Yeah. I appreciate that, and as a new chair, I'm very grateful to the previous committee for the work that they did in this, and you're absolutely right. So we've got those noted, and we will absolutely return to that, Declan. Okay, members? Thank you very much. Okay. Matters arising number 3. Members are referred to the response from the department dated the 5th of December at pages 54 to 57 of the pack in reply to our letter of the 20th of November regarding the report on drinking water quality in Northern Ireland 2023 and the status of the investigation into drinking water quality event at Moyla Water Treatment Works, WTW, that occurred in 2023. Members, the response highlights that the Moyla WTW is supplied by Lough Neagh, and this event occurred during the algal blooms that happened in Lough Neagh. At that time, there was a high level of consumer contacts regarding the taste and odour of the mains water supply from Moyla Water Treatment Works, and there were also contraventions of the taste and odour parameters in the final water from Moyla Treatment Works. In October 2023, the Drinking Water Inspectorate, the DWI, audited the controls that Northern Ireland Water had in place to manage the risk from the blue-green algae at Moyla, and made 6 recommendations. All 6 of these recommendations have been addressed by NI Water. This investigation has now concluded. However, the Drinking Water Inspectorate continue to monitor and assess the matter, which hopefully gives some level of assurance. I'm aware that the Committee for Infrastructure held an external meeting at Moyola Water Treatment Works in November, during which they heard evidence from Northern Ireland Water on the impact of wastewater capacity constraints and Lough Neagh issues. Members content to note? Okay, thank you. Item number 4. I refer to a follow-up briefing dated 19th of November from the Ulster Anglian Federation in the packet pages 58 to 61, following their briefing to us on the 7th of November. You will see that the Federation is calling for stronger backing and a strategic vision from DAERA to ensure the sustainability and growth of angling for the benefit of all. Members, I suggest that we forward the correspondence to the Department for comment. Content?
Yeah, asking for a reply and update, and perhaps specifically, Chair, if you don't mind, and if members agree, to get further information on the rationale behind standing down the kind of community outreach projects, whether they're statutory responsibilities or not, that have a clear link to better outcomes in terms of health, well-being, social interaction, tackling isolation, and a host of other things before you even get to appreciation of nature and the environment. So with a focus on those issues, I'd be keen to hear more about the rationale, and then perhaps we could take a look at how we could encourage the department, as other departments should be doing, to do more of this.
Yeah, no problem, John. Thank you for your work on that. Actually, it was very useful in that briefing that we had from them, your background in that and your desire for it. Are clerks content with that? We've got those points? Yeah, thank you, members. Okay, item number 5, members, I refer you to correspondence dated the 5th of December in the pack, page 62 to 63 from the Department regarding the consultation on the distribution of the Residual Milk Marketing Board legacy assets. This was first discussed on our meeting on the 12th of September. The consultation closed on the 8th of October and had 4 responses, and following analysis by officials and with the Minister's approval, it has been decided that the money will be released to the Dairy Council for Northern Ireland. The letter that we received on the 12th of September highlighted that the possible options were the Dairy Council for Northern Ireland, money to be used for generic promotional activities, or Agri-Search Northern Ireland, money to be used for research projects connected directly with the dairy industry. We now have that substantive piece from DAERA in regard to their intention. Do you have any comments or content to note, members? Okay, content to note, thank you. Okay, matters rising 6 and 7, I'm going to take them together if that's okay. I refer you to the clerk's response dated the 6th of December at pages 64 to 66 of the pack to Mr William Taylor, Farmers for Action, FFA, and a subsequent email from Mr Taylor dated the 6th of December at pages 67 of the pack requesting his email is put to the committee. The committee had requested that FFA provide the information it had referred to, stating that its legal advice differed from the Minister's regarding the proposals in the Farm Welfare Bill. The clerk wrote to Mr Taylor with my consent, summarising the committee's work so far and highlighting that we were still awaiting a response from DEFRA and the legal advice referred to by FFA. Members, it was decided at the meeting of the 24th of October that we would await the response from DEFRA and DAERA and the additional information from FFA on the legal information referred to in the Gosling report before the committee would determine what further action it wishes to take, which may include inviting stakeholders to brief. To date, we have received the Minister's response and the team has chased up the DEFRA response. The FFA are pushing to meet with us, but are you content that we return to this matter in the new year, as we're still awaiting DEFRA's response and the legal, the alternative legal advice as sought initially?
Yeah,
content?
Content.
Yeah. Okay, members, thank you.
Chair, sorry, do you wish us to write back to FFA and say the committee reiterate that the committee want to see that before they make
I think
decision?
our position is the same as it was in October 24th of October, and I think it's fair with the committee to have requested both from DEFRA and FFA in this regard.
Thank you.
Content? Thank you, members. Matters rising number 8, I refer you to the Department's response dated the 10th of December at pages 3 to 5 in the table papers regarding the NIEA Business Plan 24-25 and why agricultural planning applications are returned for further information. Members, the response states that planning applications can cut across several divisions within the department, each with their own distinct criteria to assess, but often using the same information to make the assessment. Where concerns are raised or if information is missing or not clear, clarification is required to enable a substantive response. An example given is cross-checking that is required to confirm the detail in a nutrient management plan that aligns with the air quality impact assessment regarding coordinates of slurry application. The response also highlights other examples as to why they are why more information is sought. Members, are you content to note this response? Are there any further questions in regard to this? I might have one as chair just in regard to that. So it's to do with probably the information that's available to the applicant in the first instance in regard to those, the importance. Is the information provided up front? If this is a recurring issue, have the department ensured their advice up front with the applicant is sufficient to prevent this unnecessary chain of communications? Well, not unnecessary chain of communications, but certainly it's unnecessary if the information can be gathered at the point of application, if it more accurately reflected. Any other points, guys? No, happy enough. Thank you.
Chair, sorry, do you want us to write back?
Yes, right back. Sorry, I thought, I'm expecting you to read my mind, Clark. Doesn't really work like that, does it? Okay, agenda item 5, Department Oral Briefing, January Monitoring. Members, I referred to pages 69 to 74 in the pack for this item, Departmental Briefing for the ERA Committee regarding the 24-25 January Monitoring Round. Members, the paper sets out the outcome of DERA's internal considerations of the January monitoring round and provides details of the returns due to the Department of Finance in 2 stages by the 2nd of December and the 3rd of January. The January monitoring round is the last opportunity in the financial year to set out our budget, and it is this position that our provisional outturn is reported against. That's the department. The final budget also sets the spring supplementary estimate position, which under the Budget Act provides the legal authority to spend, and this is the position against which the annual accounts are reported. So, I welcome the following departmental officials: Roger Downey, Finance Director, and Richard Macaulay, Deputy Finance Director. And I'm just going to invite you gentlemen to brief the committee. Thank you.
Okay. Morning everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to brief the committee on the January monitoring round. This is the 3rd and final monitoring round in 2024-25 and will be used to set the final budgets for this financial year, which the department will report against in the provisional outturn exercise after the year end. As the Chair said, the exercise is in 2 stages, with the first stage submitted to DOF last Friday and the second stage due to be submitted to DOF by the 3rd of January. The department has no resource DEL or capital DEL bids in this exercise. However, we do have one non-cash ring-fenced resource DEL bid for depreciation of 6.6 million. There is also one Consolidated Fund Extra Receipt or CFR of 1.1 million, and that is to be transferred to the Consolidated Fund. Therefore, on this occasion, with the exception of the non-cash depreciation bid, the monitoring round is very much a technical tidying up exercise to ensure that any transfers into and out of the department and any reclassifications are processed. More details are set out in the written briefing that was provided to the committee last week, and we're happy to take any questions on it.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to open up with one, and I'll open up to the members if that's okay. In the papers that you've supplied there is under, I think it's point 7, it talks about the department is requesting the following additional AME cover. So there's one in there, and it's the 3 million for depreciation cover. Could you give us a bit more detail in regard to how that figure is arrived at and what it covers?
Yes, so that's annually managed expenditure, the AME, and that's to do for depreciation on any assets that are procured by grant from another organisation or from Europe, or just not from the department, or not, it doesn't come through DEL, so that has to score under the consolidated budgeting guidance from Treasury. That scores in AME instead of DEL, and so we need to bid for AME for that.
Okay, thank you. You'll also be aware that the Minister was with us in the Chamber this week on a piece of legislation on the climate budgets and so on. Reference was made to the Just Transition Fund, and I'm not sure if it's been detailed enough in terms of what the Minister's requirement will be in the early part of 24-25 in that regard. Is there money set aside for that, or has there been a request? What does that discussion look like at the moment?
Well, I suppose for the budget exercise for 25-26, the Minister has put in bids for a Just Transition for Agriculture. So that's in the mix with all the bids from all departments, and the Executive haven't agreed the budget yet for next year. But when that's agreed, we'll come back and we'll brief the committee at that
Oh,
stage.
okay, thank you. I'll come back to you maybe a wee bit later on. The Vice Chair, Declan.
Thank you very much. See, in relation to the paragraph 12, the reclassification of 1.6 million from Treasury earmarked DEL to Capital DEL relating to the Environmental Farming Scheme Common Market Organisation and Farm Carbon Footprinting Project. Can you maybe put further details on that one there, on that move?
Okay.
Yeah, I suppose, yep, that's the 1.6 is by, as you said, broken down with the need bird monitoring of 0.7 million, which has been transferred, reclassified into capital and onto the HMT Treasury earmarked funding, and that's around the EFS monitoring and evaluation framework, and specifically the element around the environmental farming scheme where they're looking at the biological environment monitoring of EFS, and that includes the evaluation of NI birds population, and building up that. So that's building up information around that and the future capital benefit that will bring. The second one then is a CMO around 0.5 million being capitalised, and that's around the funding for the fruit and vegetable aid scheme as part of that to producer organisations. Public funding is provided at 50% on that there to producer organisations which are approved through the operational programme, capped at 4.1% of the PO's value of the market production. So that's what that element alludes to. And then the final one is the carbon footprinting project at 0.4 million, and again, that's around carbon project to deliver the whole farm carbon footprint to all farms in Northern Ireland. And funding for 24-25 is to procure a carbon calculator for the project and to commence and build the IT infrastructure to enable the data flow with the LMC and the Livestock Commission and the carbon calculator back to DAERA. So that's the capital element of that.
And seeing on that last point, is that connected to our PGA status for the grass-fed beef, the calculator? No.
We wouldn't have that detail. We just know what the money is and what needs to be reclassified. I suppose that sort of detail we'd probably have to check with Food, Farm and Rural Affairs Group, but that can be done and be brought back to you.
Thanks very much.
John?
Yeah, a couple of things, and without going into the detail of what the money's actually for, in broken down, the non-budget increases of 7 million for AFBI and 5 for what's called movements in working capital. These are not inconsiderable amounts of money. So the AFBI money, is that negotiated internally within the department before that figure is arrived at? And if it is, at what level? And then some explanation of the 5 million for the movements in working capital as well. Would be grateful for that.
So these, because they're non-budget, they're not DEL, they're not AMI, they're non-budget, so it's a different classification. It's purely the cash. So once the budgets are agreed in DEL and AMI, you have to get the cash in a particular financial year. So we have to make an estimate of how much is going to be actually spent in cash in a particular year, and around the year end, for various reasons, payments may go out in the last couple of weeks in March, or they may go out in the first couple of weeks in April, and that happens at the beginning of the year as at the end of the year. So this is essentially to allow for that to happen. You make an assessment based on your level of accruals and creditors at the start of the year and the projections that might happen at the end of the year, and you ask for cash cover for it. So it's non-budget, doesn't affect any of the other budgets. It's just the outworkings of the budgets that have been agreed on how the cash may fall in this financial year.
But it's not, through you, Chair, it's not in effect an additional 7 million to the original budget, given the AFBI.
It's not. It's just to ensure it's just to ensure we can draw down enough cash to allow AFBI in the first instance and the department in the second instance make the cash payments within this financial year.
Okay, thank you. And then the movements in working capital one, is it a similar process?
Well, the grant and aid is to AFBI for the cash. The movements and working capital is within the department. So it's the exact same thing. It's just different terminology because it's within the department.
Thank you.
Something that's not, maybe I hope this is not unfair to you guys, but we're interested in the vacancy levels within the department too, and the implications that that has on budget, certainly I'm interested in terms of whether it's underspent, has an impact on efficiencies and what the agency costs then look like, and whether it balances out. Could you give us any indication on how that is managed?
Don't have that with me today because we're up in the January monitoring round.
Yeah.
But
is there not an impact then with vacancies held through each of the monitoring rounds? Then because it's an ongoing monthly, quarterly cost, I would imagine. Yes.
Staff costs are the biggest element of the non-treasury earmarked funding in the department. So we look at that very closely throughout the year at each of the monitoring rounds. And you recall we made bids at both June monitoring and October monitoring to cover staff costs and the likes of pay. There's no bids now in this monitoring round, and that's part of the impact of that is because we haven't been able to fill vacancies. So the money's been there to help cover a projected pay award and other pressures. So we haven't had to make bids to the executive in this monitoring round as a result of that.
No problem. Okay. And you've already alluded to there will be no further consequentials in the financial year, we don't think.
Well, the Chancellor made the statement on the 30th of October, so that was supposed to set the budgets for the year. The only thing is the non-cash depreciation. So for whatever reason, Treasury because it's non-cash, they probably treat it at a later stage. So Department of Finance haven't got that confirmation yet. Okay. So it's due to come as part of the spring supplementary estimate process in Whitehall, and there'll be a barnet coming in it, and we should get funding to cover our non-cash depreciation pressure for that. So that's why we bid for that.
Okay, and final one, I don't know if this steps on the toes of John's maybe question, but he stated that there's a bid in the region of 6.6 million for ring-fenced Dale as part of the monitor round, which 4 million relates to the pro rata reduction of the opening baseline. Can you give us a bit more detail in regards to what that signifies?
Yep, there's a 4 million was when the NI Secretary of State didn't include, as Roger said, the initial the ring fence resource deal. So that was relation to maybe opening baseline, where it was related predominantly to IT, and then there's been 2.6 million above that 4 million, which is relating to new a mix of new capital infrastructure, projects or capital that's going. So that's what that relates to.
Okay, no problem. And Thomas?
Yep. I know we're dealing with the monitoring round here, but I want to look just a little further afield here at this minute. Is the fact, and the Minister hasn't come up with the 25-26 budget as yet, but I'm sure there's work going on behind the scenes with regards to that budget coming forward. What impact do you see this whole climate change and Climate Act and all, and the environmental improvements and all that, what impact do you see that having on the 25-26 budget?
Well, climate change is the Minister's top priority, so we've been looking at that as part of the information gathering exercise we were doing as part of the budget exercise. But until we know our allocation from the executive, we don't know how what proposals we'll put to the Minister and how he decides to allocate funding across the department. So that's still in discussions amongst DOF and the executive. So it hasn't come to us yet. But when that is, we'll sit down, we'll look at the options, put proposals to the Minister. The Minister then will consider what funding he wishes to put to across the department, and then we're happy, as I said earlier, we're happy to come back to the committee and talk you through that in detail.
Fair enough.
Well, Thomas? Okay, any other points, members? It's like an early Christmas present for you two. Thank you very much for your time. We're not giving you anything other than a happy Christmas. And just enjoy your Christmas, and we'll see you in the new year, and look forward to those further briefings. Thank you so much. Thank you, members.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Members, agenda item 6 is a departmental oral briefing on the Agriculture Bill. Members, I refer you to the following papers in your packs at pages 76 to 100. And this agenda is being recorded by Hansard, where we have a letter from the Minister dated the 7th of November regarding the introduction of the bill, letter from the DALO, the Delegated Powers Memorandum Agricultural Bill, the bill itself, the explanatory and financial memorandum, and Hansard of the DAERA oral briefing to this committee on the 20th of June. Members, this is the first evidence session in the committee stage of this bill. A briefing from the department on the content of the bill will follow. At the first meeting back after recess, we will be briefed by RAISE on its bill research paper, which is currently being drafted. And members, we know that the Fruit and Vegetable Aid Scheme, FVAS, is now a devolved scheme, and Northern Ireland is free to consider what support best suits the needs of our horticulture sector. We are also aware that the Minister is currently undertaking his post-EU policy development of agricultural support, and in parallel is seeking primary powers through this bill to allow DEFRA to make FVAS support discretionary and allow DAERA to modify this legacy scheme. So I'm going to welcome the following officials to brief the committee and answer some questions following the briefing. That is John Terrington, Head of Agri-Food Legislation Branch, and Elaine McCrory, Head of Supply Chain Transition Team. Thank you, guys. And perfect timing, so if you're content and happy to brief the committee, I'll just invite you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members, for the opportunity to come today. As you said, I'm John Terrington, leading on the bill, particularly in this case, and I'm joined today by Elaine McCrory, who's been undertaking a review of the current running of the CMO, the Common Market Organisation, legacy schemes. As you say, we're here today to inspect the small agriculture bill which Minister Muir introduced to Assembly on the 25th of November, a proposal which we briefed the committee on in June. We're pleased to be here again as part of the bill's formal committee stage, the bill having passed its second stage on the 3rd of December. When we briefed the committee in June, we set a proposal for a bill that would have a narrow focus on directly amending a assimilated law governing the legacy EU Fruit and Veg Aid Scheme and providing a scope for the Department to further amend the legislation that governs that scheme and another legacy EU scheme, Agri-Food Information and Promotions. We said in the context of these two schemes, the lack of scope for them to be amended in line with, for example, post-EU exit policy developments, and that is a legacy of the FVAS, should be able to say that by now, being an EU scheme that DAERA had a statutory obligation to fund all eligible claims for the last 5 years, and that obligation would continue without the proposed legislative change. We return today with an agricultural bill in the Assembly, as I say, and it does three things. It amends the legislation governing FAS to make support under that legislation discretionary. It confers a power to make further modifications to that legislation, and thirdly, it provides a power to modify the legislation governing promotional schemes for agricultural products. If I could, I'd pass it on to Elaine just for a few moments.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today. If I may start by providing a little context by way of a reminder of the schemes. As John said earlier, the bill deals with two schemes that have their origins in the EU. The legislation governing these schemes was converted into UK law on exit and amended to make it work in a UK context, and is now known as assimilated law. Under assimilated law, farmers and growers in a variety of sectors can come together to form producer organisations to strengthen their position in the supply chain and increase their competitiveness. While POs may be formed in a range of sectors, financial assistance is available through the Fruit and Veg Aid Scheme to POs in the horticulture sector. Under this scheme, assistance is payable to POs that submit an eligible operational programme, with operational funds that are then part financed by contributions from PO members. Following the end of EU support, DAERA has provided the match funding for the scheme since the last 5 years in Northern Ireland. There's currently one PO supported by DAERA with an approved programme over the 3-year period to December 25. In addition, there are currently 2 other POs with Northern Ireland members headquartered in England, because that is where the majority of their turnover is generated. Because of this, they're DEFRA funded. However, that could change and they could become eligible for DAERA support in the future. All of the POs with Northern Ireland members operate in the mushroom sector. The 2 POs with the head office in England, as well as the Northern Ireland Mushroom Growers Association, briefed the committee in June, as you'll recall. I'm going to hand you back to John now.
Thank you. As I said earlier, the first thing the bill does is make support under the Fruit and Veg Aid Scheme discretionary. And on this, members will have heard from the Minister confirm during a recent debate in the bill that in itself does not signal the end of the scheme, nor does it reflect any plans in his part to do so. He made it clear his belief that the sector had the potential to grow and develop, in his words, for the benefit of health and economy, food security, the environment, including respect to decarbonisation. He referred to the continuing development of the Farm Support and Development Programme and to a review of the Fruit and Veg Aid Scheme. He confirmed that he had made no decisions on the future of the scheme and would not do so in advance of the outcome of ongoing review, wider consideration support for the horticultural sector. He also made it clear that making support discretionary, as I say, did not signal plans to close the scheme here. He pointed to the bill's enabling powers, which provide the scope to allow for the scheme's future development so it can best reflect the needs of Northern Ireland, subject to the outcome of ongoing reviews and, of course, available budget. At this point, I recognise it would be, I say, the second thing that the bill does is provide those enabling powers to do that. And I recognise at this time it would be helpful the committee could, part of the scrutiny, get some idea of what might be included in any further legislation. But I think that wouldn't necessarily be possible in advance of the completion of the review. And in the event that the FES did continue, it's unlikely that the powers would only be used once, the bill giving the scope for the scheme to keep pace with policy developments locally or elsewhere. If I can briefly turn momentarily to the other legacy EU scheme covered by the bill, that of the EU legislation simulated law provided for support for agri-food information promotion for agricultural products. Under this, not-for-profit organisations could apply for EU support for promotion campaigns, primarily in third countries. The largest and most successful UK beneficiary was the Dairy Council NI, which under the EU legislation successfully applied for and ran programmes comprised of both inward and outward trade missions, most recently in the Middle East and South East Asia. While I say Northern Ireland benefit from support under the scheme in the past, there are currently no live projects under the scheme. Opening the scheme would require a call for projects. And if this were to happen now, the conditions for support would be based largely on the rules that applied before exit, with limited scope to align with any future Northern Ireland post-exit needs. The bill, therefore, in addition to making FES support discretionary and providing enabling powers to further amend that law, also provides the enabling powers to amend the assimilated law governing agri-food promotion schemes. If I can turn briefly to the specifics of the clause by way of introduction to those, as set out on page 5 of the AFM. There are 6 clauses in total. Clause 1 makes support under the Fruit and Veg Aid Scheme discretionary. That is, it removes the obligation to fund all eligible claims. It does this by amending Article 32 of the Assimilated Law EU 1308/2013, or also known as the CMO regulation, to remove any requirement for all eligible schemes to be funded and therefore enable the Department to continue the FES on a discretionary basis in Northern Ireland. A new Article 1A is inserted by subsection 4 of Clause 1 into Article 32, and this simply clarifies who is eligible for discretionary support and therefore maintains the status quo in that regard. I should point out that while this appears to be a substantial drafting subsection, it is in effect doing nothing but restating what is there, just for clarity. Clause 1 also includes transitional provisions in subsection 5 in relation to existing FES programmes. A belt and braces provision to ensure that the new discretionary power would not impact on existing agreed operational programmes, which would be due to end at the end of December 2025. Clause 2 provides power to amend the CMO and named implementing and delegating acts in relation to FES, the enabling powers I referred to earlier. Subsection 1 of that clause confers the power in the Department to make regulations to modify the listed assimilated legislation, and subsection 2 provides an additional power to make regulations regarding the review of decisions relating to such aid. This is really because you're moving from a discretionary to a mandatory to a discretionary fund. Obviously the need for appeals needs to be made clear. The subsection also makes it clear that any regulations made under that would be very similar or would align with existing appeal legislation that's currently in place. Clause 3 confers the power under the Department to make regulations to modify listed assimilated direct legislation relating to the agri-food promotion schemes. That's all I said on that. Sorry, I don't suppose anything will be anything else. It does what it says on the tin, hopefully. Clause 4, subsection 1, provides that the regulations made under the bill contain supplementary, incidental, consequential, transitional, transitory or saving positions, and that such provisions include modification of any statutory provision, which are, we believe, standard clauses in bills to ensure a fully functioning statute book as a result of any changes made by the enabling regulations under clauses 2 and 3. It also provides that the regulations in the bill can only be made following by approval of the Assembly, i.e. the draft affirmative, subsection 3. Clause 5 provides interpretation of the terms, including to modify, which could include amend, repeal or revoke. And subsection 1 of clause 6 provide that the coming into the operation will be royal assent. Given the transitional provision in clause 1, this will not impact on any existing operational programme and the support for them. And of course, the last clause sets out the Act's short title, the Agricultural Act. Hopefully, this is relatively straightforward, although technical as soon as we move into the assimilated law area. But it does what the Department consulted on. Clause 1 making support discretionary under the FEAS. Clause 2 and 3 providing necessary powers via draft affirmative by virtue of Clause 4 to amend FES rules and the Agri-Food Promotion Scheme rules as necessary. Again, thank you for the opportunity to brief you, and as you said, we're happy to take questions at the start of what I suspect is will be an ongoing process.
Thank you both very much for that. That was quite detailed, and it's good to look at that explanatory piece in regard to it. There's a couple of questions that jump out at me, and one might seem very simple, but I think it's really important. So you've used the title Agriculture Bill, and when we're dealing with something which seems to be very narrow and pointed, which is the FEAS in regard to fruit and vegetables, and in particular making the payment, which has been ring-fenced for some time, discretionary. Was there a reason why a more specific title wasn't?
Best I can do is refer you to the the Assembly's Office of Legislative Counsel, for it is they that would have named that. I do draw attention to the long title, and the long title makes it very specific. This relates to regulation, but the Fruit and Veg Aid Scheme, information promotions and matters contained therein. So that narrows it to this, but otherwise the bill title is an OLC call.
I noticed in the sort of explanatory documents, obviously one of the considerations was to do a much broader agricultural bill, which you would imagine will still have the same name. That if it was going to be a broader agricultural bill, does that, in terms of the broader and more detailed explanation in terms of that name, the longer name, does that mean that this couldn't be something like a tool to build on in terms of just widening out? This will be narrow and
I guess the first thing in terms of a wider agriculture bill,
yeah.
I think that's something the Department continues to scope in terms of what powers are needed or not needed, what can be done with existing powers, and I guess that most of that is around the farming development scheme and the funding. So there's questions about cart before horse in terms of what the Minister wants to do and what the long term future strategy be. But that's still being scoped. Whether something would come in the remainder time of the Assembly, I couldn't say, and obviously that in itself would have a time implication. The difference would be it would just be the agricultural bill. Whatever year that comes out, you could have an agriculture act every year. I guess is the answer to that.
And that's what makes
an agricultural act.
That's what makes legislation so technically difficult, I think, to read across and to ensure that the implications and the crossovers are identified, which is obviously what you guys are masters at, possibly, yeah.
You could say it, I couldn't possibly comment.
One of obviously the Minister's been in and got it to this point where it's now under committee consideration. So one of the things that probably, certainly from my perspective, give me some confidence with this is that this would be done on draft affirmative. So the resolution is that any changes will need to be coming to the Chamber. But in clause 4, it's kind of doesn't read like that in some ways, except maybe the last sentence. So could just seeking some confidence that this doesn't amount to Henry VIII powers. And
no.
That in all essences, any further changes or modifications will need that affirmative.
Every change, bar those in bill on royal assent, any further changes by the enabling powers will be by draft affirmative. You refer to clause 4, and clause 4 says that in clause 4 1. I'll get my numbers right here. You should know by now. I'll just make sure. So then it's the subsection 1 of that extends that to. And I read it out, transitory, consequential, etc., etc., etc. They're generally technical changes that are required as a consequence in order, as I said, to make the statute book work. If you go back to the very start, the enabling power to amend, for example, the fruit and veg aid scheme rules is enabling power to change existing legislation. That's already quite narrow. That isn't a blank sheet. So that the power to change Articles 32 to 34 of the CMO is a narrow change. If you were to do that, and that has a consequence or an impact somewhere else, there's the need for the power to make sure that there isn't any gaps or any change or anything not quite right about the statute book, and that's what it do. I believe it's a pretty standard clause to have. I think if I tapped Elaine, I know what she would say next. She would also say that EU law, by its very nature, is very interrelated and cross-cutting. And sitting here now, without knowing what changes might be made, it'd be very difficult to know whether there's some reference to a term somewhere deep in another piece of EU legislation that would require, once you get to that stage, to make sure you haven't missed. That all said, the main power to change the CMO, therefore any consequential change after that, all of which would be subject to draft affirmative thereafter.
No problem. And it was good, I suppose, in the Chamber to get the Minister to certainly clarify his ambition for this, that perhaps the opportunity for POs haven't been fully recognised in Northern Ireland in terms of the sector. So thank you so much for answering those questions. Declan and then John.
Thank you very much. I just want to get clarity on something here. See in clause 3 of the bill, right? Clause 3, the three regulations we're talking about, 1114, 2014, 2015, 1829, 2015, 1831, these were formerly part of retained EU law Revocation and Reform Act 2023. Now that was sunsetted at the end of 2023. So I'm trying to work out here is that I'm looking at the Department's ability to modify these regulations, given that they would have been sunsetted at the end of December 2023.
If I may, those three pieces, you are correct, were included in the retained EU Law Act 2023 in Schedule 1 of legislation that UKG had considered spent and would therefore sunset on at the end of December 2023, a year ago. It was subsequently saved from that revocation or from that sunsetting by a piece of legislation that added to that list of sunsetted legislation, additional legislation that UKG had identified as being spent, but also used a power within the bill within the Rule Act to save anything that had subsequently been found to be not spent. It was pointed out to them that this was a scheme that Northern Ireland had benefited from, and that who knows whether we would ever use it again, but we didn't think it was it was in our position to not comment that. It would be a minister's comment, an executive comment, to say that we want rid of a piece of legislation that had been of value in Northern Ireland, in short. So that was then disapplied, I think is the word, from the sunset, the three pieces, as it applies purely in Northern Ireland.
Sorry, what was the legal instrument or that was used to disapply it?
It's the Retained EU Laws Revocation and Reform Act 2023, Revocation and Sunset Disapplication Regulations 2023. It used the powers within the Rule Act. I think it's section 1.3 off the top of my head, which allowed for that very case where they revoked something and then realised they didn't want to revoke it, but it had to be done by the October last year. So that's a power that no longer, it in itself sunsetted. So in the absence of the Assembly, the Secretary of State included that in a revocation or a disapplication SR, which was made at Westminster to unpick those. I think there was one other piece of Northern Ireland legislation included in that from another department, and the rest of it was where English departments had realised that they'd revoked something or were likely to revoke something that perhaps still had a use. The issue of a blunt instrument where you're putting a split out, but the powers were there. It was used before they sunset. They're no longer there. So yes, if we had wanted this now, we couldn't use it, as you rightly point out. It would have been sunsetted.
So it was revoked from the EU Revocation and Reform Act.
Disapplied from sunset. It's got to make sure your teeth are in.
I suppose the final wee thing is, I'm just thinking the fact that this legislation makes the funding discretionary as opposed to mandatory. Do you not believe that will leave the sector vulnerable in the future if there is ever any policy changes? I know this minister is on record of supporting it, and he's not but that might not be the case in future.
Well, as you say, the minister has been very clear that he's going to give as much reassurance as he can that he's no intention of pulling the rug from under the mushroom sector. The mushroom sector is really important, obviously, in Northern Ireland, and he wants to take his time. Let us conclude the review, let us do that future policy development piece, and then see where this fits in the future. Of course, for new minister coming in, it's their choice what to do with this, but at this stage there's no immediate plans to do anything.
But as we've said, and the minister said before, discretion isn't just discretion to pay or not pay. It's about how much you pay and who you
it's
pay.
Who you pay, for what.
But purely on the pay or not pay or how much you pay, no executive minister really should start on the basis that small amount of money it may be in the grand scheme of things is taken off their budget before they start with the scope that could get bigger in the future, even against what budget we may have had for the last 5 years to support that.
Thanks for that. Thanks for the response. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Declan. John?
Thanks. John O'Lean, thank you for the information so far, and some of my potential questions have been answered. But on a more broader theme, if I may, when legislation is being drafted, I have no particular concerns on this one, and I understand the rationale behind the flexibilities for funding in relation to changing or emerging need. But as I say more broadly, existing law around our environment, when we're talking about matters in relation to land use or practice involving fertilisers of any kind or anything that might link to the environment, how much, when these laws are being drafted, is existing environmental legislation and emerging or forthcoming environmental legislation taken into account?
If I talk about the assimilated law, first of all, the law as it currently stands is clear that producers develop an operational programme and put this forward for approval. Within that operational programme, I can't remember the exact line, but it does say that they must not undertake activities that would have a detrimental impact on the environment. So they need, the normal permits and so on and assessments before they would carry out particular investments. Also, as part of the fruit and veg aid scheme, as it currently stands, 10% of the spend in an operational programme must be on environmental measures, and that must cover 2 or more environmental activities. And we have seen that both the PO that we actually fund and the other POs with Northern Ireland members have undertaken a range of environmental measures, energy efficiency measures, solar panels, LED, biological pest control, water saving, water reduction. So the environment is already built into the assimilated law. There is an opportunity for us perhaps to increase the environmental emphasis within it. That's something for the Minister to decide. Yep. And if you look at the EU, they have actually, I think they put it up to 15% of the spend had to be on operational programmes, and it can go as far as 20%, which is done in the south. So there is scope in there to do more. If we have this legislation.
But the existing considerations are there.
Existing considerations are there, and as policy develops, we can consider what more could be done, and we would need the powers in this bill to do that, because otherwise we're just going with what's in the existing rules.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any members? Michelle?
Just very quickly, and thank you very much for your presentation. Obviously this is very early days, and I would appreciate probably the time to speak to stakeholders and then come back again with probably questions that are probably a bit more relevant. But I suppose just at this point, I understand you will have had conversations with the mushroom sector and they will have expressed concerns. What's your understanding of those concerns, and what reassurance, I suppose, at this early stage have you given them?
With respect to the future of the fruit and veg aid scheme in particular, it's probably...
Yeah, well, I have very regular engagement with both the Northern Ireland Mushroom Growers Association, so John McCardle and Anna Mercer, and I also have had ongoing engagement with the POs, and I'm meeting them again
including the
next week.
2 POs based in England. Yeah,
who have members here. So as part of the review, obviously we've been wanting to get their views on the scheme. What's good about it, what's bad about it, what they would like to see happen in the future. It's very clear that they value this scheme and they think it has been of tremendous benefit to them. So they would like to see the scheme retained, but also they are pointing to the changes that have been made in the EU since we left, and they're saying, well, there are more favourable terms there. There are amendments that could be made to this scheme that would improve it. So they appreciate. Okay, they're made a little uncertain by the discretionary element, though they understand we need to be able to control, with limited budgets in particular, we need to be able to control funding. But they also see the advantages in being able to make amendments to the scheme. So that's the message we've been getting. So we've tried to, we've kept them informed all along. We meet them regularly. No doubt they'll come back to speak to committee members and they'll articulate their concerns about future support. But I'd go back to the Minister's clear. The mushroom sector is important. He's not going to pull the rug on them. So we need to see what support that sector needs going forward and how we would best deliver that.
Whether that's the fruit and veg scheme,
whether it's fruit and veg or some other type of support.
And just during the development of the policy and ultimately then the draft legislation that we have here today, were there any amendments made in order to address their concerns as you were working through this?
To be honest, I can't say that there are, because the bit that they're concerned about is the discretionary, as Elaine said, and that becomes a political thing that's outside of our. That will come down to budget, that will come down to the Minister looking across all the other support that's out there, and the future plans that he has. And I mean, and even having the power to make it discretionary if it was decided that it wasn't rolled forward for 26 to 20 whatever, it's still on the statute book. If it was to find that some of the new stuff didn't do it, so no, not really. But I think that comes down to the fact that it's a fairly narrow thing that's being done. We have stressed that it's important to have the enabling power to allow us to amend it to align with whatever future policy, including potentially subject to review, subject to budgets, the very things that they have called upon, and are aware that that's what those powers would allow us to do, to make it Northern Ireland specific, which might mean, looking across the border to see what's being done, might look across to England and see what they're doing, or it might just be a unique, specific amendments to Northern Ireland that look at all of those.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I've got just two final questions, if that's okay. Yeah. So one is, can you give us even a high-level snapshot of what the fiscal value of it has been over this past? I was thinking 5 years, but then that just takes us back to the Brexit point, and maybe even broader than that. What the cost has been, and I know it's been in a ring-fenced budget for those years, but what the value of it has been, what the buy-in is for organisations in terms of what their commitment is, and also what the barriers have been, or what do you think the stumbling blocks for other organisations such as apple growers, strawberries and tomatoes, whatever that is, that we haven't seen, even when the scheme was ring-fenced, that we didn't see that take up?
In terms of value, do you mean first of all spend, or what value has been to the organisations?
So the cost of the scheme itself, I suppose,
the scheme itself.
And then the cost to the organisations, what their membership fee is like. So that overall cost to the department, if you like, over this last number of years. Okay.
So for the department, we've been funding it since mid-2020, because EU funding stopped in October 2020, and that was the end of that. We had to fund it after that. Originally, we were spending about 2.2 million a year. We're only funding the one organisation currently. So obviously DEFRA is funding the others. I don't have the precise figures. I do know that the 2023 figures will be available on the CAP beneficiary website. So it was about 2.2 million a year for us. But that has reduced in recent times for this 23 to 25 programme. It's, I think it's 800k the first year, 800k the second year, and about 600k for the third year. It can vary. What happens is the PO will submit a 3-year programme, and they will say, this is what we want to do, and here's what we think it's going to cost. And the values can change a bit, and the balance between capital and resource can change as they adjust to external circumstances. So that they then match fund that. So the programmes are, well, they're 50% match funded, but there's a cap on that, and the cap is 4.1% of the value of marketed production. So it's whichever is the lower, 50% of the total value of the programme, or 4.1% of their total value of marketed production is how it's calculated. So there's a significant input from the PO members themselves, because they're putting in their own money to this programme. 50% is pound for pound, is in that specific, is it, roughly? Yeah, not roughly, then the cap applies. Okay, the cap applies, yeah. So they all would pay a membership levy, and that will be determined by the PO. The PO is a democratic structure, and they will decide who contributes what to that, and then they will decide, usually on an annual basis, then how the funding that they have is divvied up, how those, that pot of money in the operational fund is divvied up, and all members within the organisation have an opportunity at some point. Maybe if it's not my turn this year, I'll get something next year. So that's how that works. In terms of sectoral coverage, I said earlier, we only have mushrooms at the minute. In the past, and I'm talking quite long ago now, probably about 2000, we did have an apple PO that benefited from this, but the nature of their business, you know, they were growing apples for cider making basically, so because of the nature of their business, they decided the PO model wasn't for them anymore. We had strawberry growers who also, over the past few years, have been involved, and I think there's still one strawberry grower as part of the local PO. So they, again, it hasn't always worked for them because their own personal business model maybe doesn't fit with the aims and objectives of the PO. If you look at across to England and Scotland, we do see much broader sectoral coverage. So we've got, you know, asparagus, herbs, salads, all sorts of crops covered. Though I did hear yesterday that a lot of the PO members are involved in pea production.
Yeah.
You know, so England seems very heavily involved in peas. Scotland's very involved in soft fruit, so berries. Mm-hmm. They're really into. So, and it shows you then how, you know, the POs will adjust according to their own specific circumstances. We do want to drill in a wee bit more to why there isn't more uptake here, because that's a big question for us.
And just one last one from me before I bring William in. I think William's going to maybe have the final questions. Something that just occurred to me in that, so this piece of legislation is looking specifically in and around giving the discretionary powers in terms of the mechanisms of the scheme. However, what governs then the arrangements in and around PO organisations? Because you talked about their almost like discretionary contributory function and stuff. Is that underpinned just by like policy as opposed to regulation and stuff?
Okay, in terms of the governance of PO, that is set out in the legislation, and the rules around forming a PO and being recognised as a PO are actually determined by DEFRA.
Okay.
And that's because POs are able to, sounds bad, but it's not, interfere in the market in a particular way. So they can jointly decide how much they're going to produce, how they're going to market it, and negotiate on the prices. And normally individual businesses aren't allowed to do that. So it's a reserved matter. And those rules are set by DEFRA. So there are rules, for example, like you must have 5 members, you must have a minimum value of turnover, you must be set up as a legal entity, you've got to be set up on the initiative of the growers. So there's lots of rules set down in legislation around that, and they must be compliant with those. And non-compliance with those rules can lead to penalties.
Okay, and there's no discrepancy per region at all? The regulations set by DEFRA are...
No, at the moment it's set on a UK-wide basis.
Okay.
You know, and we do hear people saying we would like the rules changed, and we can articulate that to DEFRA, but at the end of the day, DEFRA will decide.
As Elaine said, that's in a range of sectors. It's really only the fruit and veg aid scheme that also have the advantage, not only their ability to intervene in the market, but their ability to access grant aid through the fruit and veg aid scheme.
No problem. I'm sure we'll pick that some through the stakeholder engagement. As Michelle alluded to, William, you're indicated maybe for the final questions.
Chairman, I live in the heart of the apple growing fruit country, so I know a wee bit about it, and I understand that they do get basic farm payment for fruit growers, and they can claim for a farm business improvement scheme. But you are saying, is this the processing end more than the growing end? From mushrooms the same. See, it's 2.2 million grant aid in the past few years. What in effect is that in the main for?
That's okay. So this scheme is for growers. It's targeted at growers. So it's producers. So, and it is to the whole ethos of producer organisations is to strengthen the position of growers. Because naturally, you know, as we know, they tend to be at the bottom end.
In marketing or growing?
Both growing it and marketing the produce themselves. As far as I understand it, they decide on their marketing, and they then would use bigger marketing desks to get their produce into retail. But the scheme is really to support growers, and how the money is used is both for capital and non-capital investments. So polytunnels, solar panels, irrigation systems, what else? Accommodation, staff accommodation in order to retain workers, training, agronomy support. So across the board, lots of different lots of different activities can be funded.
Have been funded in the past, yes. You know, fruit growers would complain to me that there's very little support for them.
We are hearing from stakeholders that it is difficult for them to access other forms of support. So that's obviously something that we need to take into account as part of the review.
Okay, thank you.
Members content? Yep. Okay. Members, I need to seek agreement from the committee that we delegate responsibility for the scrutiny of the delegated secondary legislation to the examiner of statutory rules and forward to her the delegated powers memorandum. Are members content and agreed? Thank you so much. Thank you guys for the session. It was very useful and informative, and we will see you again in the new year, 2025.
Merry Christmas to you all.
Have a good Christmas, guys. Thank you. Members? Do members need to take a break at this stage for a couple of minutes, or are you content to carry on? Content to carry on?
I'm content enough to carry on. The next one's very closely linked anyway.
Yes. Yep. Okay.
You want a break? No, we'll take a break.
Oh,
Do the next one, take a break.
Sorry?
The next one's the committee list of consultees.
Take a break after the next one, not a bother. Thank you guys. Agenda item 7 is the Agriculture Bill plans for committee stage. Members, I refer you to pages 101 to 104 in the pack for the draft list of potential stakeholders to invite to give oral evidence. Are you content with the list as published? Do you wish to add or remove any stakeholders at this stage? Additional evidence can be sought if needed from other stakeholders as we go through that bill. Anyway, obviously we can... Yep.
There are no issue at all with the list in front of me, but members will know, and certainly those who sat through the climate bill and other matters in the previous mandate will know that it's not unusual for there to be cross-sectoral representation sought on matters dealt with by this committee. So in light of that and consideration of the points made earlier around land use and practice impacting the environment, I have no particular issues in relation to this bill, but as a point of principle, I think we should look for environmental input on agricultural considerations, as we often get agricultural input on environmental considerations. Therefore, I would propose that on this bill and on future bills, if we get them, that Northern Ireland Environment Link should be added to the list of consultees.
Well, I just an individual personal meeting with Environment Link recently in that regard, and I think it would be useful if members are minded for that. Yeah, I'm content with that. Thank you, John. That was useful. Guys, as the guys, getting very familiar with you, members. Members, as with the vast majority of bills that go through the Assembly, we need to consider an extension of the committee stage, which as it stands is due to end on the 4th of February. Therefore, I suggest the following motion to extend, which can be found at page 11 of the table papers. The motion would read that in accordance with Standing Orders 3, para 4, the period referred to in the Standing Order 33, para 2 in relation to the committee stage on the NIA Bill 0822-27 is extended to the 9th of May 2025. The first meeting after recess, Easter recess, will likely be the 1st of May, so the date of the 9th gives us 2 meetings after Easter, should we need them.
Okay.
Remember, I know there's yeah, okay. So the clerk has consulted with the bill office on this proposed date. This may sound like a long time to consider a 4-clause bill. However, we can always complete early, but as you know, we can only request extensions within the first 30 days. It will likely take us into early March to take oral evidence. We've also got Christmas. When we break today, we've about 3 weeks, and there won't be a lot of people picking up stuff. So I think this is more in line, not necessarily for us, but for the stakeholders in particular, not to miss out on the opportunity to participate in this. So it's likely going to take us to early March to take their oral evidence. Then we need a few meetings to conduct deliberations and the formal clause by clause, and a few meetings to finalise the committee responses. And this would take us to the mouth of Easter recess. So we'd be aiming to complete prior to the Easter recess, but we're allowing a couple of meetings post-Easter recess as a contingency. In addition, it's likely that our second bill, the dilapidations bill, may well be with us early in the new year, so we need to allow time to start that in parallel if needed. Michelle?
I was just curious as to whether or not that was giving us enough time, and maybe we need just to allow yourself an extra few weeks, because I am really conscious that writing the reports is quite an arduous piece of work, and it's not to hinder the progress of this in any means, but it's just being realistic for the team, because it is a small team, and I'm just mindful of that. So
recess will be obviously the first or second week in July. Summer recess will be returning in September, and there's a I suppose there's a pressure on this bill to be completed by September. I have no issue in terms of a week or two in that. I think we're building in flexibility, but I would say the ambition of the committee will be to get it finished, and we'll return to this in advance of. And if we can finish this in advance of, I'm content to take that, Michelle, as long as it's not to frustrate the process. It's just to make sure that we're not putting too much pressure on. That's all. Are we content? So we'll look at the 9th. We go for
another couple of
2 weeks beyond that, which would be the 23rd. If that's correct, we'll check that in the diary. I've just added 14 and 9. I'm thinking it's 23.
I'm mindful that we're just pulling dates really out of a hat at this point, because we really don't know until we start to do the work. But I'm also mindful of the fact that there are restrictions within our own processes that have to be taken into consideration.
Okay, members?
Okay. Chair will go with the agreement.
Okay,
two weeks beyond
we'll amend the motion then to reflect that. And okay, members, thank you very much. Okay, the committee team will then send the committee motion to the Business Office as it's been amended. Thank you, Michelle. Members, please see the clerk's memo and table papers at pages 7 to 10 for the list of potential questions for the committee's called evidence for citizen space. Do you want a break now?
Members did, yeah.
It's just because it's his birthday. You think he's getting special dispensation on the committee because it's his birthday?
Your birthday. Not to sing then. Okay.
Yes. Well, let's just read this out, guys, and then we'll take a break. Okay.
Your cake there.
Okay. So the committee's call for evidence on the citizen space. Members, are you agreed with the set of questions that, and are there any changes to make? Those are on pages 7 to 10. If you're agreed with the questions, then I will now seek agreement that the committee team launch the citizen space as soon as possible on the week beginning the 6th of January to run for 3 to 4 weeks. Yep. Okay. Okay. And are you agreed to launch that week? And would you like it to run for 3 or 4 weeks? I think you could probably go for 4 weeks now. We've built in that contingency. Okay. Members, we're just going to break for a comfort break for the birthday boy. Thank you.
Committee Room 21. Sound. 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 Committee Room 21. Sound.
Thank you. Okay, members, the next item is to look at agenda item 8, which is the statutory instrument, the Greenhouse Gas Emissions Trading Scheme Order, Amendment Order, 2025. Members, I refer you to the letter from the Department dated 20th of November and to pages 106 to 128 in the pack for information on the draft SI, the Greenhouse Gas Emissions Trading Scheme Amendment Order 2025 and the accompanying explanatory memorandum. Members, further to the letter dated 19th of November 24, which is in the table papers at pages 12 to 17, which informed the committee of the UK Emissions Trading Scheme, otherwise known as ETS, Authority's initial response to the free allocation review consultation. Minister Muir has now given consent for the proposed amendments to be enacted through draft legislation amending the Greenhouse Gas ETS Order 2020, which provides the legislative basis for the UK ETS. The SI introduces two technical changes which relate to the treatment and definition of stationary installations that permanently cease to undertake an activity regulated by the scheme. The SI was laid in the Assembly on the 2nd of December under affirmative resolution procedure, accompanied by an explanatory memorandum. It was laid simultaneously before each House in the UK Parliament's NI Assembly, Scottish Parliament and Welsh Synod under Schedule 3 to the Climate Change Act 2008 as an order in Council for approval in each of the respective legislatures. It's anticipated that the affirmative debate of the Assembly for this SI will be scheduled for mid-January 2025. Members, the provisions in the SI aim to eliminate the perverse incentive where an operator can receive an excess of free allowances in their final year of operation, which they could then sell on in the market. They also address challenges faced by the regulators in interpreting and applying the permanent cessation definitions. The UK ETS regulator in Northern Ireland is the Chief Inspector of the NIEA. Further detail on the changes made by the draft SI is provided in Appendix A. Members, subject to the outcome of debates to be held in all UK legislatures, including the NI Assembly, the SI will come into force on the 1st of March 2025. Members, we have received a number of oral briefings on the Greenhouse Gas ETS. This SI will be debated in the Chamber under the affirmative procedure. Therefore, are you content that the committee support the SI in debate, or do you wish to seek further information first via an oral briefing after recess? Content? Yep. Okay, members, thank you. Agenda item 9, the SR 2004-204, the Marine Licensing Application Fees Amendment Regulations, Northern Ireland 2024. Members, I refer you to the letter from the Department dated the 4th of December and the pages 129 to 149 of the pack regarding the SR 2004-204, the Marine Licensing Application Fees Amendment Regulations, Northern Ireland 24. Members, the SL1 was before the committee on the 28th of November, and the officials briefed the committee, including the department, and has consulted on the proposals to revise marine licensing fees from the 9th of July to the 3rd of September. That the policy objective is to deliver a more efficient and equitable marine licensing system based on the principle that users should pay for the service they receive. There was no objection from the committee to the rule, which is being made under negative resolution procedure. I'm now going to put the question. That the Committee for Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs has considered SR 2024-204, the Marine Licensing Application Fees Amendment Regulations, Northern Ireland 2024, and there's no objection to the rule pending the Examiner's Statutory Rules Report. Are members agreed? Content? Thank you, members. Agenda item 10, the Departmental Written Briefing Update on Policy Development for a Fisheries Bill. Members, I refer you to the Department Written Briefing dated the 3rd of December at pages 149 to 156. Which regarding an update on policy development for a fisheries bill. A public consultation on the policy proposals is planned for March 2025. The purpose of this submission is to provide us with early sight of the development of the fisheries bill, and the department states that it relies heavily on the Fisheries Act Northern Ireland 1966 as a main piece of legislation which guides the work in relation to fishing and fisheries. This department feels that the existing legislation, particularly in relation to inland fisheries and aquaculture, is hindering the development of a modern fisheries management system, and proposes that a new fisheries bill is needed. This is to modernise and give effect to Northern Ireland's fisheries policies so that these are consistent with the post-EU exit fisheries management framework provided by the Fisheries Act 2020 and high-level strategic policies in the UK Joint Fisheries Statement JFS. The departments highlight that the development of a new bill would ensure, as a minimum, that aquaculture and inland fisheries are better managed, and that the common enforcement powers available to the UK's other sea fisheries authorities are available to the department in the same way. An indicative timeline for the bill is it's appended at Annex A of this briefing, which aims for introduction in May 2026. The Fisheries Bill team will review the position regularly and report to the project board, and ultimately the Departmental Legislative Programme Board is required. Do members have any comments? Are you content with the update? John?
One quick comment and relates to something I mentioned earlier. It's page 155 on the subject of angling, to provide quality opportunities for angling at sustainable levels which deliver wider benefits, including well-being and tourism. That probably contradicts the current situation of public engagement and outreach being wound down. So hopefully officials, if listening today, will take into consideration that they need to start developing policies and practices to fit with that before the bill comes forward.
Absolutely, Joan, and that's a good read across actually in regard to what was mentioned earlier on, so it's a good spot. We've captured that. Members content? Okay, thank you for that, guys. Okay, agenda item 11, which is correspondence. I refer you to the correspondence dated the 5th of December at pages 158 to 159 of the pack regarding publication of the noise complaint statistics for Northern Ireland 23 to 24 report. There were a total of 10,684 complaints received in 23 to 24, which is down 5.8% compared to the previous year. The greatest number in Belfast District Council, with the greatest number in Belfast City District Council and fewest in Newry and Down District Council. Domestic noise accounts for 76.2% of complaints, and commercial and leisure for 12.03% of the complaints. Have members any comments? Are you content to note? No. Thank you, members. 11.2 members, I refer you to correspondence from the department dated the 3rd of December, pages 160 to 171 of the pack regarding quarterly sickness absence in the Northern Ireland Civil Service from July to September 2024. There is a link to the electronic version of the report in the correspondence. Any comments? Are you content to note that? Thank you, members. 11.3 members, I refer you to correspondence received from Andrew Trimble, Executive Chair of the Renewable Heat Association Limited, in the packet pages 172 to 180 regarding two letters relating to the recalibration of the Department for the Economy Northern Ireland RHI rebate. These have been sent to us for information, as Mr Trimble highlights that the Minister for Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs assessed the scheme as being capable to delivering 6.7% of the statutory target for 2030. 6.7%. What did I say? 67? 6.7, 6.2, yeah, 6.27% of the statutory target. Are members content to note? Any comments to make? Obviously, this is still a live debate in the chamber. Okay. Content to note. Thank you. 11.4 members. I refer to a paper received from the Northern Ireland Mushroom Growers Association, NIMGA. In the packet, pages 181 to 189, this paper proposes options for supporting mushroom growers in Northern Ireland for consideration by the Northern Ireland Executive. NIMGA asserts there is little support for the mushroom industry and there is now a very real danger that it will disappear if government does not intervene to mitigate the impact of its challenges. These challenges include the loss of access to EU workers and increases to energy costs, which are more acute to the proximity of mushroom farms, particularly around the border, which is a much more generous government support and access to workers from the EU and further afield. Members, the paper proposes that input is required from both UK Government and the NI Executive to ensure that essential support and infrastructure is in place, including a bespoke visa enabling workers to stay for up to 2 years, ensuring that producer organisations are given the same or better investment and support than counterparts in the Republic, developing industry support grant schemes and putting in place financial support for mushroom farmers to provide them a safety net to mitigate against external shocks such as weather and energy costs. Have members any comments or are you content to note that the committee are aware of these issues, have written to DAERA in recent months and it remains on the agenda? Yep. And there obviously will be opportunities with this bill coming forward where we will, I'm sure, be teasing out some of those issues in the discussions with the
It's important, Mr. Chairman, that we support the industry. They are, the labour force is a big issue for them, and it is a sector that needs help and support, and I think the committee should do all we can to support them.
Yep. I'm content with that. Are you content, William, that when we have them in as part of the stakeholders for in regard to looking at that legislation that we members content? Yep. Agreed. Thank you, members. Thank you, William. 11.5 members, I refer you to an invitation, the packet pages 190 to 191 from the Special EU Programmes Body, the SEUPB, to a series of information events. The SEUPB and POBL are preparing to open 2 new Peace Plus grant schemes aimed at grassroots communities. The Changemakers funds are due to open for applications in January 2025 and will distribute €40 million over the next 3 years to support people-to-people projects on a cross-community and or cross-border basis. The purpose of the information events is to raise awareness of the fund. Have members any comments that they would like to make or content to note? Content to note. Thank you, members. Thank you. 11.6 members, I refer you to Clerk's memo from the Clerk to the Committee for Communities dated the 4th of December, pages 192 to 195 of the pack. Members, the memo provides an update on the briefing that the Communities Committee received on the 20th of November on the ongoing work regarding the draft anti-poverty strategy. The main areas of discussion are highlighted in the memo. It was agreed that a letter was sent to all departments to ask that any work attributed to each department in the anti-poverty strategy be expedited to ensure there are no delays in the publication of the strategy. Have members any comments or are you content to note? Content to note, thank you. Agenda item 11. Members, does anyone have any other business? No. No. Okay, thank you. Nicola, thank you for joining us online and on yet. Agenda item 12, date and time and place of next meeting. Our next meeting is Thursday the 16th of January 2025 in Parliament Buildings at 10 a.m. I wish all committee members and the committee team a peaceful Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Committee Room 21. Sound. 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 Committee Room 21. Sound.